Hello and welcome to TNA Top 10. This week on the football show, we're going to talk about week 6 games and look forward to week 7. And make sure you guys are unmuted when I call on you because this is tricky sometimes. But we have with us, as always, I'm T Weave. We have Andrew with us. And today, for the second time, I'm going to introduce him, our friend, the champion of the bowl pick'em last year, and up until this week at least, he was the leader of the college football pick'em for TNA. Bryant Haremza, how you doing, Bryant?
Doing good. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming. So why don't we get into it? We got some stories, some opening stories here. Texas took a week off and watched the whole SEC crumble.
Ha! You're not wrong,
Yes.
Terry. So I'm 3-7 in this week's top 10 pick'em because I did check, and thanks to the SEC, I'm 3-7 in this week's top 10 pick'em. A remarkable meltdown is the best way I can describe that from what we have called on this program.
Mhm.
And we're not the only ones. We don't get paid millions of dollars to say it, but there are those that do. The best football program in the country, and they are best conference in the country. They did not look like it this week,
No.
with the exception of Georgia. No offense, Terry.
Yeah.
Very few of the top teams in the SEC carried the water, and we're going to talk about some dominance that was unexpected from Texas A&M. Not
I don't
good.
know. I called that one. I don't know if I called it that much, but I did.
You didn't
Roll
call
the
it by
win.
fucking 30. That's my
I did
that's my line. Number one.
But I will
No.
say that Georgia, Georgia had a loss already, so I think it was going to be difficult for them to show up and not really take it seriously. And we'll get to that, but they did well. But yeah, so many of them just showed up, and even the bottom of the SEC is still in the SEC. As much as we like to shit on Vandy,
I don't think
There's-
Alabama will be doing that anytime soon.
yeah,
Vandy's slowly coming along. I mean, even if you look at the game last week with Missouri,
yeah.
took them to double overtime. So Vandy's slowly coming along, getting that program, trying to get it rebuilt and up there to compete with everybody else.
And
Rebuilt to 6-6.
he
Vandy
had
sucks.
and Diego Pavia had them just where he wanted them. They're a 3 touchdown underdog or more. That's how he likes it.
Vandy is horrible. Okay, there's no excuse for Alabama to go. They should have spotted him 30 and still won by 5 touchdowns. I guess we're jumping the shark here, but that performance by the SEC has opened the door for the Big Ten in a big way, and at least according to the polling, according to our polling, I'm sure. I don't. But the Big Ten's got to deliver too, and they're just it's war of attrition at this point. So,
And then in the Big 12, and I put it down, it's like there were teams that we thought were going to be at the top of the Big 12, and they have just not shown up. Like Kansas was ranked in the top 25 preseason. They have not beat an FBS team all year, and we're 6 games in.
And all of a sudden, Oklahoma State is got the arguably, because of who's on this list, best running back in the country, or should have been, and they can't win a football game in Stillwater. They got Ollie Gordon on this team. They got Ollie Gordon on this team, and they can't win a freaking game in Stillwater.
Right.
So,
well, and that's the thing with this new pack, and like you guys have talked about before with the new Big 12. I mean, there was so much new potential. Like I thought Utah would honestly walk in here and just walk this conference, honestly, with the defense they had. And like it almost feels like nobody wants to win the Big 12 at this point.
Right.
Like they're all just willing to just let it go to somebody else.
Well, it's my obligation to say it this week. Without Cam Rising, Utah's offense does not exist.
There is no offense in Utah. There is none.
Their defense is fantastic, but they have no offensive firepower without him. They're not a threat deep. They don't read well. They don't run well. They're relying on their defense to score, which is always a problem if you're the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
They're the Big 12 Iowa.
Yes.
What now?
The Big 12 Iowa.
One more time, I still didn't catch that.
The Big 12 version of Iowa.
Oh, Iowa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Idiots out wandering around. You know why
Yes.
Nebraska's so windy? Because Wyoming sucks and Iowa blows, and you're all welcome for that. Sorry, Terry. That's a little
That's okay.
geographical humor for if you've ever lived in Nebraska.
You
As
would
of
I
understand.
have.
this past weekend, it was 94 degrees in Lincoln with a 50-mile-an-hour wind blowing.
Yep.
Well,
Normal
you
day.
mentioned it. You mentioned Boise State's running back Ashton Jenney. He's already over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. They're calling him the favorite for the Heisman.
Okay, well, that's unless the press just gives it to Travis Hunter because they like him so much.
Yeah, that whole both sides of the ball thing, they'll really boost somebody up. But I mean, he's really playing both sides of the ball. He's not
Yeah.
just kind of showing up on one for a few plays. So I'll give him that.
And he rarely sits. And that's the other thing with
Yeah.
Travis Hunter. He plays every down he can. He might miss 2 or 3 snaps, but that's it.
Right.
And he's out there. And the thing is, even when he's on defense, he makes the big plays. He's causing fumbles. He's in those pass breakups. He's doing everything he can to carry this team.
And if
And
they
I think
can play
he's-
to
I
the
think-
level they did last week continually this season, he may get a boost there.
Yeah, and I think the media's in love with him. I really do, and that is going to help. See Eddie George, 1995.
I think he's got a podcast. I mean, it's 2024.
Yeah, he does, and they allow him to go on there and talk, and that's something that we talk about some things you wouldn't see, Terry. That temper tantrum that was thrown at the end of the Alabama game, that there's been a public apology
Oh,
issued
yeah.
for, would never happen in the Nick Saban era.
Well, how about all the crap about DeBoer's T-shirt? Y'all heard all that?
Oh yeah,
Fans are
yeah,
pissed that he was wearing an ugly T-shirt on the side.
yeah. It was wearing a T-shirt on the sideline instead of wearing a polo or a whatever.
Or
Yeah,
a button up, yeah.
But
he's
hey,
got
there's also a bunch out there about Nick Saban providing the rat poison this week.
yeah. Well, I mean, Saban said that the Vandy's the only team you don't have to worry about, and this is the thing, Vanderbilt, because I'm going to be the Saban apologist here, the greatest college football coach of all time, Terry. In case you forgot, 7 national titles, 29 losses at Alabama, 11 SEC championships. Do you have any idea how many points he ever let Vandy score against him?
13.
13. 13 total points in all the times Vandy played.
They had more than that in the first half.
And that was my point is, DeBoer has already gone way past that. All the times Vandy played Alabama, Vanderbilt scored 13 total points. And there was a game that everybody remembers where Vanderbilt was 4-0 or 5-0 and they got to play Alabama. And the guy says, Alabama, you're next. And it was when Jalen Hurts was the quarterback. And Jalen Hurts says, well, I guess we are next because we're on the schedule. And they end up winning 52-3 or 59-0, or it was just a humongous blowout.
Yep.
And
We were
there's
teasing
one
this, so I thought I'd throw the graphic up. We might as well.
2 turnovers and you had the ball for 18 minutes. You're going to lose a football game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Vandy controlled the clock. I mean, you even look at the stat there. Alabama, 84 rushing yards. Like, to me, that's a telling stat on an Alabama stat line because they are always ground and pound, whether it's quarterback, running back by committee. They've got a running game. To have 84 yards just kind of tells you that they abandoned ship and just relied on the pass.
Yeah, and Terry doesn't have how many attempts they had for passing this time.
Yeah,
but
I could only fit so much. I had to sacrifice some of those details.
But you only had 6 third downs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got 50% of them. And everybody, it's a great win for Vanderbilt. Let's not get this twisted. They are not better than Alabama. They're not better. They were better than Alabama Saturday, but this is not a better football team. It's not a better program. It's not a better coach. It's not better recruiting. It's not better facilities. Alabama went to sleep, and Vanderbilt took advantage. And 42 minutes, if you don't have the ball, you want to know how you keep Ryan Williams from doing what he did against Georgia? Do you know how you keep Jalen Milroe contained? You possess.
Yep.
And if your defense can't get off the field against Vandy, and you got some of these bigger games coming up, it's not really, really beneficial. Now, I'm not ready to call fire, panic, whatever at this point for Alabama. But hopefully this is the eye-opening loss they need. And speaking of eye-opening losses, we have corrections this week. Thank you, Dave, and the HSV. Apparently, since Bobby Bowden's first year at Florida State back in the 70s, Florida State has had 5 losing seasons, 4 of which are contributed to Willie Taggart and the current man, Mike Norvell. It was 2008. Ole Miss beat Florida 31-30. Not what I thought was Kentucky. Kentucky beat LSU the year prior in triple overtime, as did Arkansas. And fun fact that Dave didn't add, but I did, LSU would be the only 2-loss national champion in history. And both losses came in triple overtime. And another fun fact, because we got to talk about them later, Terry, they decimated Ohio State in the national championship game. And that was when the Mad Hatter was actually the Mad Hatter. So.
Wasn't that when Ohio State went on the run, went to back-to-back or national title games?
06 and 07, they lost to Florida and Tebow and Chris Lake, and they lost to LSU in 07. And then Florida took it from Oklahoma in 08. Bama wins it in 09 from Texas.
Yep.
And then some guy won it in 2010, Terry, but I don't know what his fucking name was.
Yeah, but then, Bama the next 2 seasons.
Bama. 3 out of 4. Pretty good football team. We tried to keep
a streak alive that next year, but Jameis Winston, whatever.
Exactly.
Let's move to the next game, because it's kind of the same story. We got another SEC team favored by a lot. Tennessee goes into Arkansas and loses.
This is embarrassing. Where the hell was this offense of Tennessee? Bryant, go ahead, buddy.
For me, I think, you got a blueprint. The pressure that they put on Nico on the passing game was kind of surprising to me. Like, they came at different looks, and you kind of see the stats here, but like it was almost like Tennessee didn't know how to handle the rush. It didn't know how to handle the pressure that Arkansas was throwing at them, and they panicked. Truthfully, it just looked like they panicked out there on the field with every play.
And they certainly didn't
getting shut out in the first half. I mean, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, they certainly didn't expect the rush. One thing, Terry's over there smirking because he's been waiting for Tennessee to play someone with a pulse, as he says. But it's true, because those first 3 games where they rolled everybody, they were rolling nobodies.
There's a lot of fool's gold in college football at the start of the season.
Yeah. But you and I talked about this, Terry, last week, and I told you under no certain circumstances was Tennessee going to lose this game, because there was no way Arkansas offensively could keep up with Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And I still believe that. But apparently they figured out how to play some defense there in where the hell ever Arkansas is, Fayetteville. They get play because they stopped Josh Heifel's offense, which is in itself an incredible task.
And this is saying bad stuff about Auburn, but Arkansas's DC was an Auburn linebacker, and then we let him get away. So we'll see what happens.
All I'm saying is this was of all the games, this is the second most shocking. Well, shit, I can't even rank them. Let's see. Probably Alabama to Vandy. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. Especially when he didn't possess the ball 20 minutes. And I'll be honest with both of you guys. I didn't even put that Vandy-Alabama game on my radar because it's Vandy. Why would you even watch that game when the other games were going on at the time?
And I think the scoreboard is still hanging from a crane, isn't it?
Correct. And it was Vandy that needed all the light bulbs this week, Terry, not freaking Alabama. But the other thing is, in all seriousness, this game and the Missouri game, absolutely stunned by both. But anyway, do we have Missouri?
We got Missouri. Missouri at Texas A&M. At least Texas A&M is a team that you thought, Missouri's on the road. Texas A&M, even though we thought Missouri should win this football game, A&M, they've got talent. But it shouldn't have been 41-10.
No, this is an embarrassment. And last week I called this a measuring stick, a litmus test, whatever. Offensively, defensively, special teams, paper on paper, film to film, Missouri wins every time. They got dog walk Saturday afternoon, and this game was
many yards.
This game was never close. It was absolute. And look, I get College Station, but it ain't worth 30 points. Playing in College Station is not worth 30 points. Is it worth a score? Probably. A bad team is worth 2 scores? Sure, but not this.
No matter how much they practice cheering for their team.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this was just remarkable.
Well,
Bryant
and
has a thought because he was high on Missouri like I was.
I've had Missouri as kind of my dark horse SEC team because of how they did last year. They're coming back with a lot of players. I'm like, this team could do something. They had penalties on big. They'd have big play and a penalty, and that penalty just seemingly just deflated them completely. It just took them completely out of the game. Like you have a touchdown play and then it's called back, and they just literally just shrug. Well, what do we do now? It just looked like they didn't know how to overcome anything, and I give Texas A&M's quarterback Weigman, I believe, was who came back in after being out and just was unstoppable, almost throwing the football in that first half. It seemed like, and just up and down the field. It seemed like just nothing could stop them. And I think Missouri, I can't say they're looking ahead because Bama's still in 2 weeks, but it's almost like they just gave up.
Well, my deal with that's a nice comment from Devin there. Thank you, Devin, for joining us. It's good to see you, even though you're a Q's fan.
Well, he keeps winning all our contests, so he must know something about it.
Kyle McCourt's doing things though over there.
He is
Syracuse.
doing good over there. Yeah, he's helping.
But no, in all seriousness, here with the talking about this game and what A&M was able to do, you hit it on the head. They don't, Missouri would get a little momentum and it get called back, get taken, whatever. And Elko, to his credit, has these guys playing, and this was a balanced offensive attack. And when I picked Missouri to win last week, it was 2 reasons. Number one, I still think they're the better football team than A&M. They didn't play like it, but Alabama didn't play like it against Vandy, and Tennessee didn't play like it against Arkansas.
True.
But I was unaware their quarterback was back. And I've made that mistake a couple times. I'm going to have to start reading injury reports. But he made all the difference because he's
100%.
been out since the Notre Dame game. And A&M's offense did not look like this for the last 2 or 3 games, especially against a pretty good defense that hadn't surrendered a whole lot of anything to anybody.
No.
They even kept Boston College less than 300 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Bottom line, though, A&M is truly, Terry, that team. We talk about find the team no one wants to play. Mm-hmm. They're probably that team. I personally think Illinois and Nebraska are that team in the Big Ten. We'll get there. I think A&M is that team. You don't want to play them. They're going to be that team that you don't want to play. And all of a sudden, I'm doing the Nick Saban hands. You don't want to play them, Terry. Terry,
one thing that's interesting to me with A&M, when Jimbo was there, they were like top 3 in recruiting, and they just had some hosses, and he didn't know what to do with them. Right. When Elko came, some guys transferred out. Now, he kind of held on to some key pieces, but he's probably got less talent this year than A&M's had in the past. But he can coach. He coached his guys up. Obviously Duke didn't run away with the ACC last year, but it's freaking Duke. He did a great job at Duke. And now he's going to have the ability to recruit in Texas. Mm-hmm. This guy might be, I talk about all these teams at the top of the SEC battling it out to see who drops. He's making a big statement here, probably.
And as we sit right now,
you look at what he's done, Elko, and the difference between Duke and A&M is Duke is a basketball school. Mm-hmm. A&M has a checkbook that they're willing to open up. And we joked about it last year, Terry. Bryant, you can weigh in on this. They told Jimbo Fisher to go fuck himself and wrote the check to get him out of there. They were done with Jimbo in College Station. And then the week they fire him and have to pay the buyout, what did they earn at that? $150 million on that 12.
They had a huge check at halftime. They were showing it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's insanity. Absolute insanity. But they were happy to tell him to pound sand.
Exactly.
Jimbo Fisher.
Yep.
And Elko's kind of got a grittiness about him where he's not trying to put super teams together. He's not resting on the fact he was part of Saban's staff and won national championship at Florida State with Jameis Winston. He's building. And that's what you saw at Duke. Even in their losses last year, they were always competitive. The loss that they had against Notre Dame, A&M shouldn't have lost that game. No. They should not have lost to Notre Dame. This was a beatdown. This was a statement. A&M's probably, now they might make me a fool and lose the next 4 or 5 games. but I see them as the real deal. A&M.
And currently sitting on top of the SEC.
That's right. And Auburn's right on the bottom, but we'll get into that later. Next game,
Later.
Auburn at Georgia.
Later, here we go. We'll just cede it to you, Terry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this game, Auburn got down by a touchdown early and stayed down by a touchdown, and it ended up 31-13. But that's because it got too late in the game to punt, and they gave Georgia good field position, and Georgia kept adding. They didn't play that bad, but Auburn's definitely got a ceiling, and Hugh Freeze wants to open it up, and that's what he did at the start of the year. But he didn't have the quarterback to do that and to not throw interceptions. He's pulled it down, but they're kind of bland, even though, they did okay on offense. They just don't have that dynamic playmaker at quarterback. They got a great running back, and he did well again, and they need to keep feeding him. But Hugh Freeze wants to air it out. And I put the thing on Twitter today, Sandra Bullock. For those that don't know, Hugh Freeze was Michael Orr's high school coach. So that guy that Sandra Bullock is telling to run the dang ball, that's Hugh Freeze. And she needs to come down to Auburn and keep telling him that.
Well, the biggest improvement from last week to this week is no turnovers.
Yeah. Huge.
And no turnovers against a very fast, physical, disciplined, experienced defense in Georgia.
Right.
But next week you'll probably throw 5 fucking turnovers. I mean, there is so much inconsistency at Auburn right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball. To your point, we don't even know at Auburn who we are as a football team.
Right.
Do we run the ball? Do we throw the ball? Well, this week we did a little bit of both, and we just didn't get to the end zone. That's what that looks like, Terry, because you're playing Kirby Smart's defense.
Yeah.
They're not going to give up a whole lot.
No.
People say, well, Alabama scored 40 whatever. Yeah, they did. But that was Alabama.
Yeah.
There were mistakes like, the offensive line is okay, but there were a couple of times where Thorne would drop back and the defensive end is right there. Like our left tackle apparently cannot do pass protection. The run blocking's good, but he just let a guy through like he didn't know his assignment or something. That happened multiple times. You can't do that against Georgia.
No.
You can't come back from it.
Negative.
Yeah.
And then they get an off week, and then they go to Missouri, and Missouri's going to be pissed off, and we'll see how that goes. Let's move along out of the SEC and into the ACC. Miami storms back in the fourth quarter to win 39-38 against Cal.
They got by with a little help from their friends again this week, Terry. I know you didn't see it because you're in bed. But we had a missed targeting call.
Mm-hmm.
Had 2 offensive linemen downfield in the end zone. Miami absolutely lost this football game. Did not deserve to win this game. Was given this win again, the same as Virginia Tech. And Cal just couldn't close. Ultimately, you don't see 21 points in the fourth quarters if you're a good football team.
Correct.
But they got the turnover. They made I always forget his name. The quarterback.
Ward?
Ward. Thank you. I knew it was a W. Cam Ward. They made him nervous. They got to him. But yeah, Miami played a very undisciplined football game. You see 110 penalties there. They got fortunate that they didn't get called for targeting in fourth quarter. That targeting result would have resulted in a 15-yard penalty, first down the other way for Cal. The U is vulnerable. They're not a great football team, and they're not a very disciplined football team.
I'm interested to see who steps up in the ACC. I mean, I know we're going beyond just this game, but looking to see who that team is.
It felt like almost Miami was, I don't want to say trying to lose, but like the penalties and just, I mean, they had the decent time, but like for Cal to give up a 25-point lead going into the fourth, that's just, you can't do that, especially on a team like this where you had them down. And it's almost like they just kind of were like, okay, well, they can't come back. They can't come all the way back. We'll find a way. And
Right.
like Andrew said, that missed targeting, I think, kind of just changed that momentum a little bit more and gave Miami that more confidence. And then marching down to, last play of the game, score the touchdown to win it. And ACC is kind of the same as the Big 12. Who's going to step up to actually take it?
Yeah.
You don't know at this point.
But to your point, good teams find a way. Cal's not ready yet because they have a 21-point lead or whatever, 20-point lead. They do not close. You have to close.
Yeah,
and we're going to talk about that with a couple other teams coming up. You better be able to close.
Exactly.
Particularly this season. Because it's already the Wild West. It would not shock me if we make it without an undefeated team before the year is over. Would not shock me.
Agreed.
Well, let's talk about another couple of ACC teams since we saw Florida State drop out. Miami's showing some weakness here. Oh, we got the Clemson Florida State game. I thought a different game was next. We'll get to that in a minute. But Florida State, 250 yards against. It's weird that the yardage was 500 on the nose and 250 on the nose. Clemson 29-13, doubles up total yardage against Florida State. Florida State's struggling.
Mm-hmm. You send your best players to the league last year. Mm-hmm. All those players who, when they realized couldn't get to the playoff, all left. You had the shell of the team that got dog walked by Georgia. And now you're trying to rebuild this program that a lot of people can't see going anywhere. Sorry, Dave. But Clemson is that slow, sneaky team that I think can still make that one run if they need to. Klubik is coming on strong now. He's kind of getting a little better grasp of the offense. And he's kind of just taking this team, Clemson, back up. The defense is coming along. It is Florida State giving up only 13 points this week. But if you can keep that consistency on the quarterback side and just let him manage the game properly, Clemson's going to work their way back into it, I think. They're slowly rising back up.
Clemson didn't close. 500 yards, only scored 29 points. They obviously did not close. Story of this game, and you boys can weigh in on this, and I've said it last week. I'll say it next week if we talk about Florida State. Talk about the week after, the week after, the week after. 22 yards rushing, giving up 265. They have no control of the line of scrimmage. And if you have no control of the line of scrimmage against any top-level football team, they're going to run the ball. They're going to shove it down your throat. And then when you go ahead and put 8 in the box, they're going to burn you on the backside. That's how this works. Florida State cannot establish the line of scrimmage. They're not giving their young quarterback any help. These highly touted running backs are not doing their job. Their defense is spending way too much time on the field, although this game looks like it was about even. But you're getting gashed. When you put 500 yards, these are big, long breakout plays where people are sprinting to make the tackles or push someone out of bounds. Until Florida State can establish the line of scrimmage, they're not going to win football games. This is the biggest, most colossal failure, meltdown, whatever you want to call it, that I have ever personally seen in college football. Highly touted, top 10 team, all of the recruiting, all the 5 stars, all the transfers. We got our guy at Norvell as the coach. This is an unexplainable disaster.
Well, it's also compounded.
And an unmitigated one at that. Go ahead, Terry.
Well, it's also compounded by the fact that Florida State as a university is looking to get out of the ACC while they're melting down as a team. And there is a lot of complication going on in Tallahassee. And, they got to figure out what do they do as a football team going forward and what do they do as a university where they end up in a conference going forward, all at the same time. And that's rough.
Well, they will not beat Clemson, and they will not beat Miami. No. So you can put those 2 thoughts to bed, despite the fact we both picked Florida State based on all the information we had as our preseason number 1 pick in the ACC. Right. It's not happening. It's not happening. They'll be lucky to win 5 games. They're 1-5 right now.
All right, let's move along to the other game that I thought we were going to look at next. Couple of teams worth mentioning in the ACC. SMU beats Louisville 34-27. And SMU looks pretty good as a first-year team in the ACC.
I'll be honest. I was kind of surprised with this one, just because it was such back and forth. Honestly, like
Yeah.
a lot. I still kind of and this is part of me watching college football for so long. SMU is always kind of the doormat school, or they'd have a good year here and there, but to see him kind of compete with Louisville and then kind of establish himself in the ACC when really they were the team nobody wanted in the ACC. But I know it's people are going to say, oh, it's Louisville, but they're really impressing me so far, and I think they've got good potential, and like we've said, an open ACC this year.
And I haven't watched SMU too much, but I know so Rhett Lashley is there. He was Gus Malzahn's high school quarterback and has followed him around everywhere and ended up at SMU. And I don't know exactly the offense he's running, but he's putting up a lot of numbers. I don't know if it's going to last, but at the moment, this is a good time to be in the ACC with the big boys dropping down. Maybe he can surprise them.
Run the ball. He runs the ball quite a bit. He does a nice established, getting the play action ready for his guys. They have a very good, sound, fundamental football team. Louisville not closing. Louisville should have won this game. They are not closing on the offensive side of the ball. We saw it against Notre Dame, and now we've seen it against SMU. It's not that SMU isn't a good football team. They're a better football team than I expected them to be. But Louisville, offensively, that 6-year quarterback, he's been in systems. He understands football. He gets the timing, blah, 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 blah. They lose a game. So SMU has done a great job. I'm all for an underdog. Let's see somebody different other than Clemson or Florida State, or not Miami, because they don't deserve it. 2 times the referees have given them a football game. But that's typical of Miami and their national championships back in the 80s, too. So, anyway, Bober says couldn't hack it in Clemson, and he's sure as hell not cutting it in Tallahassee. I'm not sure who on this program said something about DJ when Dave was on the show. But I don't remember, Terry. Maybe you can help me out. But I had said the man's a liability, I think. And he's a liability.
Like that, yeah.
Still is.
I probably said worse than he's a liability, to be honest, because that's, my style. But yeah, he's not good. Like the Yankees, down 4-1, Giancarlo's batting, though. Has my attention. What's the next game, Terry?
We're going to head to the SEC. No, we're not. We've already done the SEC. We're going to head to the Big Ten, Michigan at Washington, a replay of the national championship game. And Washington at home welcomes Michigan and beats them by 10 points. With 13 points in the fourth quarter to make that happen.
Michigan is just not the same. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh's gone. It is a completely different team. But Washington's a complete rebuild team from what they had a year ago. And I was actually happy to see Washington win this because I thought they were going to be much like UCLA, the doormat of the Big Ten this year. And not that I just don't enjoy watching Michigan lose every week, which I do, but they just didn't look like Washington to me just looked good looked good, had some control, and I think this is a win they can build on, truthfully. I mean, that's what they need. And they need this kind of a win, especially against the Michigan. Yes, they're down, but it's still you beat Michigan. That's huge.
Yeah, Michigan's a middle of the pack football team this year. They'll probably lose another 2 games because they've got Ohio State on the schedule and Penn State, maybe? I don't remember. But they've got Ohio State the last game of the year, and we're going to get to those boys. That's a football team. But Michigan is not led by Jim Harbaugh anymore, and that is such a big deal. But to your point, Bryant, there were only 2 returning starters. Let's try that again. Returning starters to Washington. They returned 2. Georgia returned 16. So that experience level makes all the difference in the world. Michigan didn't have an answer for Washington. No. And you would think offensively that would be the case. Like Washington is this great offensive powerhouse. And they did. They put great yards up on it. It was the defense that was suffocating Michigan.
Yep.
And that's not Washington football. not since Chris Peterson was the head coach. So they're an offensive minded team. They're going to get stops. They got stops, and like you said, they took advantage of the home field. They took advantage of the turnovers, and they played a pretty clean football game all the way around. I mean, there's only 7 penalties between both teams, so yeah, Michigan not what they were a year ago.
And like Michigan I said, I haven't watched a lot of Michigan this year. I'll admit that, but they seem to want to lean kind of like they did a few games last year, really lean on running the ball and playing defense. Those are their strengths, but sometimes you're going to have to throw the ball a little bit. They just can't do that.
They do not have a quarterback they trust. They had J.J. McCarthy last year, who they would let him do whatever he wanted. This year, they are relying, like you said, too much on the running. They, nothing wrong with it, but you got to eventually throw the ball occasionally in this new college football. And if you can't, then you're just falling behind.
Yeah, and when you're down, let's face it, they were down. Washington forced a turnover, scored on it in the fourth quarter. And you can't get into that desperation mode. You have to relax. You have to play your game. Don't play someone else's game because of the circumstance. Play your game. And they're not doing that. J.J. McCarthy was a fantastic game manager as well. So he knew what third down meant. He knew what play to call here. He knew what slide protection. He knew what adjustment. When I talk about quarterbacks as game managers, I'm not using that as an insult. I'm talking about he had full control of everything on the offensive side of the ball.
Yep.
And you commit turnovers in the NCAA these days, you're going to lose football games. That's the bottom line.
That's right. Well, let's move on to the next game. USC at Minnesota, and Minnesota wins this by a touchdown. And I talked good about SC the last couple of weeks, and maybe I was wrong there.
Well, they're still SC, Terry. My favorite part of the whole game was at the end of it. The guy forces the turnover against SC, and then he pulls his shirt up like he's got a gun. He's flashing a gun, and they throw a 15-yard penalty on him.
Yep.
I'm like, you guys all a bunch of wusses. What's wrong with you? Couldn't happen to a bunch of nicer jerk-offs. Again, SC, they're going to throw. They're going to run. They're sloppy with the ball. They are, and these hard-hitting defenses aren't going to get any easier when you're playing in the Big Ten.
Right.
Not going to get any easier.
I look at, I believe USC threw the ball 40 times.
Yeah, Terry doesn't have that stat up here. And
we're going to have to add it back in there some way.
You're good.
No, you're fine. But they regularly, to your point, Bryant, they regularly are dropping back 35 to 40 plus times a game.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you're throwing the ball 40 times a game, how do you expect to keep up? When you've still got a young quarterback, I believe he's a sophomore this year. He's a sophomore quarterback. He's still getting, and now you're in a new conference, and you're doing that many passes, and yes, you got 173 yards running the ball, but you got to establish a run game to get him going. And clearly you're dinking and dunking to only get 200 yards on 40 attempts. Like you got to have that confidence to throw the ball a little bit more. But if you're having that confidence to throw it more, you got to be able to throw the long ball, not just here's a 5-yarder here, a 10-yarder here. You got to throw it deep. And if you're going to throw it, go for the home run if you can. But to Andrew's point,
23 for 38.
30, yeah.
38.
Your SC, you should be able to recruit receivers that are good enough to throw it up to them and let them go get it.
Exactly. Because that's what you built. You've built this team around is throwing it deep. And if you're having this struggle with Minnesota, what are you going to do when you come in and you got to play? There's still a Nebraska game on the schedule. You still got. I'm sure I don't think they play Ohio State this year, but it's either Ohio State or Penn State.
They got Penn State.
Like it's not going to, like to Andrew's point, it's not going to get any easier.
And they've got Penn State next, and they got Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, Notre Dame is on the schedule. So what do those teams have in common? Defense. You don't think the front three of Nebraska's defense is going to pin their ears back with the back three, and they're just going to fly at it into the end? I mean, Ty Robinson is going to eat up SC's offensive line. And it's not because if you're expecting that you're just going to be able to drop back and throw the ball against a good defense, you're in trouble. And we're going to talk about how good Nebraska's defense is in a minute, Terry. But forget Nebraska. They got to play Penn State. And you talk about a damn defense. Penn State is everything we expected them to be again. So, and their next game is Penn State. So, interesting.
Let's go ahead and talk about it. Rutgers at Nebraska. Nebraska walks away from Lincoln with a 14-7 victory. Tell me about it, guys.
Bryant, you're the guest. You're first.
I appreciate that. The first time all year, and I think Andrew might agree with this, Dylan looked frustrated. Like, he just looked like he didn't. It was, I don't know if it was play calling, the defensive scheme, but he just looked completely out of sorts, completely frustrated for majority of the game. You know, the first half, you know, yes, you get the late score in the first half to take that 14-0 lead, but the Rutgers defense, Greg Schiano, always has a defensive scheme ready. And it worked somewhat to perfection to confuse Dylan, but that black shirt defense that Nebraska has is just shutting everything down. You've got, you know, veterans back to help lead the charge. That, yes, it's a Rutgers offense, but, you know, Nebraska defense is everything that we thought it could be and more. So
let's just to piggyback on your point. First drive, 64 yards for Rutgers offense. They get stalled. Nebraska beats them up, stops them from scoring. They missed a field goal, I think it was. They got 14 rushing yards the rest of the game. You talk about making a defensive adjustment, because Rutgers initially was off the ball, dominating Nebraska on the line of scrimmage. When Tony White challenged his defensive line to protect that line of scrimmage and to set the tone, it was on. And, you know, they're, you know, I have in my, my little byline today, Make Williams a black shirt, James Williams, sophomore, 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, 8 quarterback pressures, 87.7 pass rush grade. And he put the game on ice at the end of it all. He is a backup edge rusher. So, I mean, he's got a bright future, but the Nebraska defense, and Sayer Wright the same way, give him a black shirt. Passes defended. He did an excellent job. But this was, to Brian's point, and I said it, you know, I've said it on social media. I've said it to you, Terry. I've said it to you, Bryant. Dylan Raiola needed this game. He played like a freshman. He was 13 for 27. He finally threw a real interception, because the last 2 have been contested balls that got taken away from his receivers on the ground. This one was his fault. Bad read, bad block by the offensive lineman, no chip from your running back or tight end. And he looked like shit in this game, just to put it very bluntly. But he's a freshman. Now, he's a better freshman than everybody else in the country as far as the quarterback position. But he's still a freshman. The good thing is the defense came to play. Now, they have a week off. They got to play Indiana, which is undefeated. And as their coach said, look me up on Google, all I do is win. That's what he said. That's what he said.
He did.
And they're already 6-0, and they're in the top of the Big Ten. So we'll see how that goes. But the Nebraska defense, if it starts to mesh and gel together, everybody's going to have problems, because there is one team in the country that has not allowed a rushing touchdown, and it is the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yes, it
is. This is your stats from Tony White. 43 FBS defenses have forced 8+ turnovers. 16 defenses have recorded 15 sacks. 11 defenses are allowing less than 14 points a game. There's only one team in the country doing all 3, and it's Nebraska. 11.3 points a game, 20 sacks, and 10 turnovers. By the way, through 6 games, they're +7 in the turnover margin. This time last year, they were -6. So a 13 turnover swing, and all of a sudden the team's 5-1 and lost a very close game to Illinois they shouldn't have lost in overtime. This is what was supposed to happen. You listen to me for 9 months on this program talk about football in Nebraska. This is what was supposed to happen. They still have their loss coming to Ohio State, but every other game is winnable on the schedule.
Exactly.
Every other game. Did you not put Ohio State and Iowa on this list, Terry? Is this the last year? I don't know. Look, it was 7-0 and it looked ugly, and then Ohio State did what they did, and they blew the doors off Iowa. 35-7.
And I
Yeah,
guess
mean,
that was the reason I didn't. I mean, they were probably on the first list. I normally put like 15, and then I go, okay, which 5 games do I take off? So they were probably one of those.
well, and Iowa has a good defense, but Ohio State, they made that second half adjustments, and they come out and they put it on them. I do not expect Nebraska to win against Ohio State in Columbus at the Horseshoe. But when you ask me who's going to win that game that weekend, it's going to be Nebraska in the Horseshoe
Right.
by 3 because I ain't picking against my boys.
Well, you don't want to pick against them and then they go win because then you look really foolish.
I'll never pick against them. I'm like the guy out of The Hangover. I'll never change. Never, ever, ever.
All right, this is the last game on the list. Why don't we go ahead and talk about the Week 6 top 10? And as always, thanks everybody for voting. We really appreciate it, and we'll let you know what we think about it. Number 10, Alabama Crimson Tide after their loss to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, our voters didn't like that loss very much, did they?
I was about to say, it seems very big of a drop there for Alabama.
Yeah, they dropped, I think, to 7 in the AP poll. Is that right, Terry?
7 in the AP poll,
7 in the AP poll.
Right.
They got South Carolina. South Carolina's got a couple good edge rushers. They got a couple good running back. I don't want to preview too much of the game, but South Carolina
going to get grumpy Alabama is what they're going to get.
But they're going to get really grumpy Alabama.
Yes.
In Tuscaloosa. So.
But then the week later, we're going Alabama at Tennessee on the 19th.
The Rocky Top.
Fantastic.
And, well, in that same weekend, Texas invites Georgia to town in Austin.
Oh, nice.
So, anyway, who's number 9, Terry?
Number 9 is Tennessee after their loss at Arkansas, 19-14. And they've got their big rivalry game against Florida this week.
Yeah, we've got a little bias here. Alabama's a better football team than Tennessee.
I was about to say Tennessee should be below Alabama in my opinion too.
It's definitely that Vandy. It was Vandy is a major factor.
That makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, but now they're playing Florida, and Florida, of course, coming off the win against Gus. Damn it, Terry, losing games he's supposed to win. Gus was supposed to beat the Gators, but he did not. Yeah,
we've seen it before.
Terry says we've seen this movie. I've got this ticket stubs. I can prove it.
That's right.
But yeah, Tennessee gearing up for Florida. I don't think this is going to be quite the game. And you talk about pissed off Alabama, you go get pissed off Tennessee this week.
That's right.
Yep.
And it's at the Rocky Top. It's at home. So,
yep.
All right, let's go number 8, Clemson, because they really played pretty well after that big, massive loss in the first week to Georgia.
Go ahead, Brian. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think they've hit. I would say getting off that Georgia loss, you get that taste out of your mouth. They're kind of hitting a stride again. They're going back to, trying to let the quarterback take control of the team. Kubik, like I said, he's taking control. He's helping them out. They got to finish. Andrew's point from earlier. If they can finish, I think they can get back in this and probably be a top 5 team by the end of the year.
And if you look at the schedule that's coming up, they got Louisville. At Virginia Tech, I don't know. Week to week, I don't know what Virginia Tech is. At Pittsburgh, so that's going to be a test a little bit.
They've got a very manageable schedule, but they need to hope that some of these teams continue to show out, like your Pittsburgh, like your Louisville, like Virginia Tech, because otherwise, if it's just dog walking all these teams, they're going to end up in the 4 position if they win the ACC. If they don't, they're going to end up in the 11 or 12 position by getting voted in as the second team. Mm-hmm. I think at Virginia Tech is a problem because Blacksburg is a problem.
Yeah, yes.
I think Virginia Tech's a lot better football team than their record. I think at Pittsburgh, this is for Mike Bober, is a problem because they have a very fundamentally sound quarterback. Yes. They have a very good defense, and they are not somebody anybody's talking about. So Bober, tell everybody on ESPN to shut the fuck up about Pittsburgh because you don't want the attention.
Yep.
You don't want the attention. You want to quietly continue to win football games. So, but yeah, Clemson has a very manageable means to they're playing the Citadel for God's sake. And Virginia, must have balled out this week to actually win a football game. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
Number 7, Ole Miss. They had the loss to Kentucky a couple of weeks ago, but they put it on South Carolina on the road this week. So they're back.
Should have been bigger than 27-3 too. They left opportunities to score on the table.
I was
But they go to LSU.
Yeah, going to LSU is going to be another big one this week. So, but I'm with Andrew. I thought they'd really kind of just run it up against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dart is still doing good things out on the field, but it just kind of seemed like they were still kind of in a lull from shock of losing to Kentucky a little bit.
By far the best win they have. I mean, up until they played Kentucky, we had that same thing about fool's gold. But, I mean, that South Carolina game, a little more confidence in Ole Miss going forward after that, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Might be, Mike, but the defense is getting the stops when they need them. So that's what matters most. And I'm surprised he's still around as many losses as Narduzzi has had, to be honest, even though he came from Michigan State. He's got a good pedigree. Yeah, the LSU game we're going to preview. So I'll hold my comments about Brian Kelly and his overrated ass for then.
All right, let's look at number 6. We got Georgia at number 6. Oof. I think they're a little higher in the AP. I think they're number 5 in the AP. Above
they're number 5 in the AP. Yeah, we got some haters. Terry.
I think people voted undefeated and then one loss. I think that's what we had for the most part. Yeah.
Well, and rightfully so when you look at the 3 Big Ten teams and the 1 SEC team. I would argue. I think that's correct.
They got Mississippi State this week.
Georgia's a number 5 team to me, though. This is a team that's complete. This is a team that got beat by Alabama. They had 3 turnovers. They had a bad break there at the end. Poor defensive coverage against the best wide receiver in the country at 17 years old. I don't give a shit. Ryan Williams can go. Georgia is still a playoff team, probably still an SEC championship game team. This is far from over. And by the way, the 40-game streak or whatever it was of regular season, it's over now. All that pressure's off. Just go play football. And to your point, Terry, Mississippi State, ever since Mike Leach died, they haven't been able to get it together. And this isn't the game they're going to get it together in Athens. So, bye-bye.
All right, let's look at the top 5. Number 5, Penn State, and they head to USC this week. And Penn State doesn't really have that marquee win so far this season. USC would definitely be the best win so far.
Yeah, the UCLA game, they scored UCLA just because it said 27-11, kind of a weird score. They scored inside the last few minutes of the game, that 8 points. It was garbage time. But Penn State had a lot of control. UCLA didn't do a lot of things wrong, but they couldn't get to the end zone. That was the biggest problem they had. And you're going to see that with these defenses. It's the old Indiana head coach who's the DC now. And Franklin always seems to find these guys that put together these great defenses, whether it be Manny Diaz or I forget who the Tom something is his name, but he was the old Indiana head coach. He's now the defensive coordinator there at Penn State. But anyway, yeah, this Penn State is just starting to get warmed up because they got USC bye week, but then they get Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington. Purdue will be lucky their coach makes it through the season. Minnesota, Maryland to finish it out. So
I say they don't have a marquee win, but that 21-7 against Illinois is pretty respectable there. Yeah,
Illinois is probably their best win to date so far because at the time, even though they were a ranked team at the time, so it's a better win on the resume for sure.
Yeah,
agreed. Right.
Let's look at the top 4. We got number 4 Miami.
Trash
at
6-0,
and they get a bye this week.
Yeah,
but they're going to have to go to Louisville, and that might be a game that sneaks up on them here.
As a Nebraska fan that watched Miami steal national championships from Dr. Tom, trash, absolute trash. As somebody who's watched the last 2 weeks them be beneficiaries of bad officiating, trash. Yeah, Louisville, Florida State, Duke. I would love Florida State, one of their 5 wins to be against Miami. That would I'm okay with that. That would be fine with me.
I think we all would on that one. Yeah. Most of us at least.
Yeah.
I don't meet a lot of Miami fans. Do they exist?
I don't think so.
Bober says James Franklin always chokes in the big games. I don't know if it's choking Bober, but he's been the number 3 team in the Big Ten
Yeah.
for his very long coaching career. He's been at Penn State since 2014. So,
He
even
loses
longer
the
than that.
games he's supposed to lose.
He loses
I
the
think.
games he's supposed to win.
Yep.
Or
Oh, well.
they're not even supposed to win them. He loses the games he has to win. Because let's face it, ain't nobody going to fuss at him for beating the other 8 teams or 9 teams he faces
Right.
every year.
Yep.
But when you play Michigan and you play Ohio State, that's it. But if they do it correctly, this year the Ohio State game will be a whiteout because it'll be at night.
Yep.
Unless they pull the Big 12 noon card bullshit, which is awful. Because that game needs to be a night game in Beaver Stadium, 108,000. Oh, and in case you missed it, Terry, fuck Miami. Who's number 3? Who's number 3?
Number 3 is Oregon
Quack
at
quack.
5-0, but they got a game against Ohio State this weekend, and we're really going to learn a lot about both of those teams.
So Dylan Gabriel this past week threw 2 touchdowns or threw 2 interceptions in the end zone that should have been touchdowns. Oregon should have beat Michigan State 45-10, 48-10. They left points on the board. Guess what you cannot do against the Buckeyes, whether it's in Eugene or Columbus, don't leave points on the board. You better score. You better, and don't throw, like, Michigan State's defense is respectable. Ohio State's defense is elite.
Right.
So you throw interceptions against them, they're going to make you pay for it.
No,
but that's going to be the game of the week.
Oh, absolutely. And Oregon slowly, they keep having too many slow starts too. Like, it's the first few drives are always stall outs, and then all of a sudden they pick it up. You can't have that going in later in the year. You got to be consistent throughout the entire game, not just, we'll pick it up later. That's where Gabriel's got to find that rhythm and get better acquainted and figure it out faster, truthfully.
Yeah.
They got several teams on the road coming up, too. I mean, I know they got Ohio State at home, but they're at Michigan and at Wisconsin. Both of those teams, if you're going to do that, they may not let you back in it. They got enough defense to do something.
I want to know what happens when they go to Wisconsin and there's a foot of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
And I want to see how they play then.
And in fourth quarter, people are screaming jump around and the stadium's vibrating, and I mean the whole deal.
Yeah.
It's an experience, apparently.
Yeah.
Number 2, Ohio State.
Yep.
Headed to Oregon this week. They are 5-0. They put it on everybody they played. And, I mean, they beat Iowa 35-7. So this is not just them playing a bunch of cupcakes, but Oregon's the best team so far.
Michigan State's a good football team. Iowa is a good football team defensively. Oregon's going to be the most complete football team they've seen.
Right.
But as I've said last week and the week before, Terry, they're in the teeth of their schedule. Iowa, Oregon, bye. Nebraska, Penn State. Because Nebraska's the team nobody wants to play.
Yep.
They've got the defense that nobody wants to play, and they've got a quarterback with really, really, really good talent beyond his 19 years of age. But Dylan Gabriel has a ton of experience. Oregon can run the ball. They can pressure. They can play defense. Will they? That's the question. Because to Bryant's point, if you start slow against Ohio State, you have to match score for score. You cannot get behind scoring against Chip Kelly's offense because it will be a bad day for you. And let's face it, because I didn't get to make the joke earlier, Terry, once Ohio State went up 14-0 against Iowa, it was fucking over.
Oh, yeah.
Because Iowa's not built for a comeback.
God, no. God, no.
They're not built to score 14 points.
No.
Number 1, Texas Longhorns. Like we said, they were sitting at home watching the SEC crumble around them. But they've got a big rivalry game this week with Oklahoma, and they follow that up with Georgia. Then they go to Vandy, and who knows?
I'm playing at Vandy, who knows at this point. So
2 of the best games of the season are coming up in the next 2 weeks, and that's gonna, for them.
And they end at Texas A&M, and if an A&M can keep playing like they have been, who knows?
Renew the
Do
rivalry.
we know if Ewers is playing this week or if it's going to be Arch? Has it been announced?
Ewers is a game time decision, but right now he is the starter. He has been named by Sarkisian, but he says he's still playing it by ear. But right now he named him the starter.
What a luxury!
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, to me, I think, and I have some friends who are Texas fans. I still think you play Arch tonight for this game. You don't put Ewers is been out hurt. How's that Russ going to play, especially going into the rivalry game? Manning's been hot. He's been playing good. Keep with the hot hand for right now. Give Ewers, make sure he's got plenty of time to be ready, because you don't want to rush him back and risk another injury here.
Yep,
that's right. And they got Georgia next. So I mean, if you can rest him and still win this rivalry game against Oklahoma, maybe have him ready in case.
I'd rather have him ready for Georgia than have him ready for this one.
That's
truthfully.
Right. But you're right, it's a luxury. And they had a third guy that even transferred out last year. So they know what they're doing out there with the recruiting. Let me run it down. Number 10, Alabama. Number 9, Tennessee. Number 8, Clemson. Number 7, Ole Miss. Number 6, Georgia. Number 5, Penn State. Number 4, Miami. Number 3, Oregon. Number 2, Ohio State. And sitting at the top, the Texas Longhorns. And that's after week 6. Let's look forward to week 7. We got some games here that we're going to talk about. Let's start it off with South Carolina at Alabama. Alabama favored by 3 touchdowns. I don't think that's nearly enough.
Not now.
I think it's 30 points here.
That's my number.
I'm going with it this time.
But agree.
I didn't go with it with Texas A&M last week, and I should have.
This team is going to be hot, motivated. I mean, and DeBoer knows how to get him to win. He's won everywhere he's been. South Carolina is going to be outgunned and outclassed.
Completely agree. I don't think, and kind of Terry's point from earlier, you're going to get a pissed off Alabama team, and nobody's ready for pissed off Alabama.
No.
Not at all.
Nope.
All right,
Washington
next game, Saturday at noon, Washington. If I can say Washington correctly, Washington at Iowa. Iowa favored by 2.5.
That surprises me.
I don't know what they're expecting that score to be. If Iowa wins by 3, I mean, what's that, 10-7? They're going to hold Washington to 7?
It's possible. They've got a very suffocating defense. McNamara is not the answer they were looking for, though. If Washington gets up a couple scores, I made the joke earlier, but the Iowa offense is not – it might be better than it was with Bryant Haremza there, but it's not that much better. And they play great defense. That's what I can say about Iowa. They have a coach who's been there forever. That's what I can say about Iowa. As respectfully as possible. You know what your problem is year after year, that you don't score and you don't fix it. Fuck you. So, I'm going Washington in this one simply because they can score. And they stopped Michigan.
I'll say Washington by a touchdown here.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Texas OU, Red River Shootout, Terry. Used to call it the Red River Rivalry. Probably sounds too violent. Red River Shootout, bang, bang. Texas at Oklahoma, not a 12 o'clock kick. They're doing this one at 3:30 in the afternoon, which for the college football traditionalists like myself, this used to be the 12 o'clock game out of the Cotton Bowl very regularly.
No, didn't it used to be like 10 in the morning or something? Like really early, even before games normally start? I thought they did that super early.
I would say 12 Eastern.
I thought it was always a noon game. Like it was always the first game out of the box, yeah.
Well, because you'd always see it because Stoops would dominate Texas when he was at Oklahoma. Yep. Texas doesn't lose this game. The offensive line of Oklahoma is problematic. You're going to see a nice pass rush. Whether it's Ewers or it's Arch, they're going to have opportunities against Oklahoma. This is going to be the very best football team that Oklahoma has seen at this point, and they're not going to win this football game. Texas, big. I'll take Texas by 17. And I know it's a rivalry game. They're that good, though. This is the
If-
same Texas team, by the way, same Texas coach. 2 years ago, blanked Oklahoma 49-0. I don't expect to see that.
Yeah.
But I certainly expect a pretty lopsided affair.
Texas coming in for revenge from last year, coming off that Red River rivalry there. And Jackson Arnold, the quarterback at OU, is not going to know what hit him. Like he's been all right, but like this is a whole different animal. Texas is good. I don't think it's even close this year. Honestly, I think Texas just kind of handles them perfect, just neatly, not even close throughout the whole game.
I'll go with Texas by 20. And you're right. I think there's revenge here. Obviously, this is a neutral site game. They don't do the at anybody.
Mhm.
So even though Oklahoma's shown as a home team, they don't have to worry about going to Norman. So
No. And
I
they
think
split that
20.
stadium perfectly, 50-50, which I
Yeah.
always appreciate.
Yeah, I think Texas is too strong. That's all. I think it's too strong. And
This
it looks
next-
like this year Oklahoma's the home team. But that really
Yeah, I
doesn't
think
matter.
so.
It doesn't matter
Right.
there, yeah.
Doesn't
Because you're still at the
matter.
Cotton Bowl, so.
Right. So this is an interesting Big Ten matchup here. Penn State at USC Saturday at 3:30. Penn State favored on the road by 3.5. This should be interesting.
To
Bryant?
me, the interesting part is what USC team's going to show up.
Yeah.
Are you going to get the team that's going to be competitive and can keep up, or are you going to get the team that we've been seeing, which is I'm just going to huck the ball around the field and hope something happens? Because if they want it to be competitive, if they want to compete, they can do it. It's just I think USC still does not know how to. They're used to playing track meets in the Pac-12, and defense is something the Big Ten prides itself on. And Penn State is on a roll, knowing they've got, they're looking at this as the tune-up to get ready for Ohio State. Let's just be honest here. And I think Penn State's going to go in, and I think they're going to handle it. Seeing it's 3.5 kind of surprises me, but I think it might be like maybe a touchdown, maybe 10 points for Penn State.
Yeah, I think a touchdown Penn State was what I was going with there. I think SC, hopefully they bounce back and play pretty well. I'd like to see a good game here, but I think Penn State's just good, and they're going to go on the road and win this.
Yeah, I was trying to find Penn State's blitzing percentage, and here's why. If you're SC and you think you're going to drop back against this particular defense, you are crazy. They're going to have to move the pocket. They're going to have to bootleg. They're going to have to successfully run the ball and get some play action. And by the way, their quarterback's going to have to hit. Also, this is going to be the most physical football team that SC has played this year.
Yep.
This is not playing in the Pac-12. This is a very big, strong, fast, disciplined defense that is playing SC in the Coliseum. I'll give them that. I get that. Like that can't be understated. But this is an opportunistic defense, and if you drop back 38 times and you let's say SC gets down 2 touchdowns, and all of a sudden you're just going to start throwing the ball, they're going to pin their ears back and they're coming. And that's not going to work, because then SC's going to do one of two things. They're going to get hit and fumble the ball, or they're going to get the ball intercepted. And I just think Penn State's got way too much in the tank. I get the Coliseum's a hard place to play. I get Lincoln Riley's enjoyed his success. SC, again, overrated. I'm taking Penn State by 21 full points this game.
Wow. All
Defense
right,
wins
let's move on to the
championship.
next game. ACC game, 3:30 in the afternoon. Cal at Pitt, and this is an opportunity. I think Cal obviously doesn't have a great record this year. They even got beat by Florida State, but I think this is Pitt's opportunity to make a statement here. They've done well up until this point with their schedule, but I think Cal can give them a game, and they need to handle this if they're really going to show up and be something in the ACC. They got to handle this. Pitt is favored by 2.5 at home. I'll go Pitt by a touchdown.
Pitt's been doing great. Pitt's on a roll, and if you're Cal and you blew a 25-point lead versus Miami, a team you had, how are you going to respond is the real question here.
Yep.
And, a part of the theme of a lot of games from last week was closing. Can they close the game and finish strong? And I don't know if they can do, and how are they going to react going from West Coast, to, East Coast? You're looking at that time difference too. Are they going to be able to handle time difference and playing all these East Coast teams now? And that's the real question. And I just think Pitt's rolling right now. So I like Pitt myself as well. So
I was just looking at this. Defensively, Holstein is your quarterback's name for Pitt.
Mhm.
We don't have any numbers on him, Terry, but he's 112 for 171, 1564 on the yardage, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he's having a great season.
Mhm.
Cal, as we know, is a very good pass defense.
Right.
That they spanked Auburn a little bit that way. They gave Miami all they wanted that way. It depends on how many times Pitt drops back, what their run game looks like, and those sort of things. I think man for man, hat for hat, Pittsburgh is the better football team. I just think they're the better football team. But I think Cal's going to make this fun.
Mhm.
So give me Pittsburgh by 6.
All right. Then we head to Knoxville, the big rivalry game, Florida at Tennessee, and Tennessee is going to be pissed off, and Florida doesn't have it this year, even with the win against Gus.
Does that say 15 or 16 and a half?
15 and a half.
It might as well
Tennessee
say
favored
50.
by 15 and a half.
Might as well
Right.
say 50. The Gators are awful this year.
Yeah, I think Tennessee at this point, Tennessee by 24 is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So truthfully, I looked at this as a trap game for Tennessee because they've got Bama coming up the following week. And I thought this would be Tennessee maybe overlooking Florida, and Florida might get lucky. Might.
Yeah.
But then Tennessee lost to Arkansas, and I changed my entire tune, and Tennessee's going to be completely pissed off and just want to punish Florida, not just because it's the rivalry game, but just be mad about how that game went. And yeah, I agree. Tennessee's just going to – we'll see how many points – let's see how much they can light up the scoreboard come Saturday is a real thing here. So
21 points. Tennessee. Rocky Top. Josh Heifel's going to have a great game plan. They're going to execute. They're going to be able, because Florida has a weaker offensive line, be able to get some pressures on their quarterbacks, whichever one it is, if not both of Florida. Really, really, really disappointed in Tennessee's performance against Arkansas because I'm very high on Josh Heifel and the offensive firepower he has. And let's face it, Arkansas showed no signs of having that defense any other time this year. So I'm going Tennessee by 3 touchdowns and another loss for Billy Napier so that he can get fired by the end of the season.
yes.
All right, then the big one is next. Ohio State visits Eugene. Ohio State's favored by 3.5. I got my thoughts, but I'll let you guys go first here. What do you think, Brian?
This is the fun part. This is the fun game for me because Oregon and Ohio State, through history, have always played close games. And to me, it's going to come down to, is Will Howard going to get time to throw the ball? And if he can have time to kind of just make his plays, I mean, you've got one of the best receivers in the country playing for you. I mean, he had the one-handed catch he had versus Iowa there for one of the touchdowns just kind of shows you that he has the faith in them to go make the plays, and he's just got to go put the ball in the right spot. It's going to come down to, if Oregon starts slow, can they keep up? And I don't know. The only benefit they're going to have is you're in Eugene. Being in Eugene is going to create an environment that Will Howard hasn't seen before. Playing at Kansas State, yes, you've got big games there, but nothing like this. I think it's close to the end, though. I think it's going to kind of come down to a track meet a little bit. But I personally, and I hope don't offend Andrew with this, but I'm going to go Ohio State by 1. By just 1, though.
Terry, you can go ahead.
Okay, I think Ohio State's going to make a statement here. And I think they kind of been lingering there. They haven't been talked about as much as they deserve. They haven't had that game yet. I think this is that game, and I think they win it by 2 touchdowns.
Terry stole my thunder. Dylan Gabriel is going to make mistakes Ohio State's going to take advantage of. You cannot do that against a $25 million football team coached by very good coaches in Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, and the rest. Defensively, Ohio State's bigger, stronger, and more physical. It is in Eugene, which matters, which means this game stays close for the first half. The halftime adjustments are where you're going to see Ryan Day and Chip Kelly pull away from Oregon. I'm going Oregon losing in Eugene in what could be a preview of the Big Ten championship game. But I'm going by 20. Ohio State dominant makes the statement going for first against Texas. And this is the game they need to do it in.
Yes.
All right. Let's move down to the SEC. A 7:30 kick in Baton Rouge. Ole Miss is coming to town, and Ole Miss is favored by 3.5. I'll go first this time. And I know that you're going to disagree with me here, Andrew. I think LSU wins this game by 4 points. I think we're sleeping on LSU. And I know we don't love the coach, but I think LSU is a little better than we're giving them credit for.
Bryant.
I do think LSU is coming along, but I just think Ole Miss has the team still. And not having Alabama on the schedule, this is kind of one of the next big tests that Ole Miss has to get through to help them get to that SEC championship game they think they can make. But I just think this is, yes, it's in Death Valley, but I just think Ole Miss has the team. Dart is still making the plays they need to when they need to make them. He's been sluggish the last couple games, but I still think this is his chance to kind of break out of it. And why not do it in Death Valley when just kind of embarrass LSU a little bit here?
Ole Miss is led by Big Lane Kiffin, Big Game Lane. One of the most creative offensive minds in football. Knows how to spread you out. Knows how to find the weaknesses in your defense. He got out coached in Fayetteville, Arkansas this past week. He will not get out coached in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and his team will not get outplayed. I'm taking Ole Miss by 13 in this one. And Death Valley is huge. It's loud. It's a night game, whatever. This is their statement win that sets the tone for the rest of their season. As far as I'm concerned, Brian Kelly is a horrible coach. Their defense is not good and has problems with it. Nussmeier is not Daniels. By the way, Terry, in case you wondered, the Washington Commanders, not Redskins, are 4-1 with the former Heisman or the Heisman Trophy winner, former quarterback at LSU at the helm. So he is as good as you and I thought he was, and responsible for those wins that LSU had. But they still don't have defense. They're still playing another team that got beat by somebody they should have just, obliterated. Ole Miss bounces back. They're going to win this one by 2 scores, 13 points.
All right, let's move along to Iowa State at West Virginia, Saturday at 8. Iowa State favored by 3.5. West Virginia is a team I don't like picking because they can show up and be good, and then they can stink it up too. They're not consistent. Iowa State has been good so far. They're undefeated. I think they end up staying undefeated and win this by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think Iowa State is very much disrespected right now. And the best way to earn the respect of college football is to continue to win and to make a statement. Morgantown, West Virginia is a very difficult place to win football games, as we've discussed on this show. West Virginia, to your point, Terry, you don't know which team you're going to face. You don't know which one you're getting. I'm going Iowa State by 10. I really like their scheme, their program there. And I think they have to find a game that they can say, this is Iowa State football.
Right.
And this could be a great game to do that on because it is West Virginia. It is Morgantown. Very difficult place to win football games, no matter the record of West Virginia.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think the one thing Iowa State has found this year a little bit more is defense. They've been playing really strong defense. I mean, I think even with playing Iowa, they gave up 19. Yes, it's Iowa. Fun story there. But, I mean, I think the most points they've given up so far was last week with Baylor, and that was 21. And that was just some garbage time TDs. I mean, they've even shut out some teams this year. Defense is something they haven't had that well before, and I think they finally have found their defensive stride. And the offense has been just playing on a different level as well. And they've got the team. They've got I'm not going to call it a complete team, but they've got a well-rounded team that this could be helping launch them to finally take that Big 12 step. Now without Texas and Oklahoma, they've got the chance to finally win that Big 12 with, Big Brother's gone.
Agreed.
All right. Well, let's move on to the last game we're going to predict. And I will go ahead and say this.
You do this to me, hold on, every week.
What?
We have to find a reason to talk about Deion Sanders, and you've done it again.
Well,
look at the kickoff time, Terry. Look at the
no,
kickoff
that's
time.
what I'm going to complain about. This is in Colorado. Why the hell is this a 10-15 kick in Colorado?
Yeah.
This is not a West Coast game.
No, it's a mountain time game.
Yeah.
Kansas State by 14. Fuck Colorado.
And here's the thing: if Deion, this is Deion's opportunity to show up, and actually, I think this is the one game if he wants to establish himself toward the top of the Big 12. He's got to play good in this game, but I don't think they have it because I think Kansas State is the team here. We talked about the other big teams at the top falling down, but I think Kansas State is the team that reaps the rewards from that. And I'll go Kansas State by a touchdown.
I agree with that. I think Kansas State is finding a stride, and the offense is slowly getting there. Like, they've been playing great defense as well. It's another thing, kind of like Iowa State. They play good defense, but the offense is slowly getting there. And if they can control the clock and keep the ball on the ground and run the game and have a good run game, which is what they've been doing right now, they've been running the ball really well. You keep that time of possession in your favor. You keep Shedeur Sanders off the field. You're gonna have the game in your hand. So I agree. I think Kansas State by a touchdown.
Yeah. So I said 14. Fuck Colorado, but the reason for that is their offensive line is going to have Shedeur running for his life.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knows how you beat Colorado now, and that's by putting the pressure and breaking the pocket. A couple double gap blitzes, a safety blitz, 5 in the box, overloads. This is Kansas State football. Bryant can tell you. I've told you before, Terry. Nebraska hated seeing the Kansas State on the schedule, and it was because they presented such a different way to play football under Schneider and the rest. This is a different Kansas State team, but they still play defense. Right. And I get that it's in Boulder. I get that it's a 10-15 kick time, which is silly. But I think K-State, they've lost the first game and now they have really just kind of found who they are. And I don't think I 100% believe and respect the idea that Shedeur and Hunter are NFL material. Now, Hunter more than Shedeur, in my opinion, and that's a character thing. That's not even got to do with their playing ability. But if, to Bryant's point, you control the clock, you run the ball, you're going to keep him off the field. The other way you get him frazzled is you get to him. Nebraska put him on his ass 6 times, and Hunter was frustrated throwing things. Shedeur was mad. Shedeur left the game. You can get him to tap out. Get your defense to put him on his ass. That's how you win against Colorado.
Yep.
And if you stay up late, that's what we expect you to see this weekend.
No.
All right, there's our picks for the Week 7 games. But speaking of picks for the Week 7 games, here's the current standings for the College Pick'em. Bryant, thank you for not picking those 3 games that week.
Yep.
You've helped us get a little bit closer to you, but Brian is still in the lead. Bober and I don't know if Bober's still in the chat, but you and I, buddy, we're tied. I'm gonna get that second place from you this week, bud. All the
How
rest
in the
of
hell did you all not shit the bed last week with the SEC just becoming a complete dumpster fire?
I don't know. I got to go back and look. See
I
who
got very
picked for.
lucky. I don't know. I got very lucky on a few of those games because I picked a couple upsets on the board that they had. So
Yeah, I picked
Well,
A
and
and
that's
M.
a lot different than picking. I've said this before. The ESPN games are different than the ones we pick on this
Yeah.
show.
yes.
And some
and
of them
yeah,
are just like, who are
Bober
these
went
teams?
4-6. I went 3-7, and I'm usually never that far off on football. I say usually never. I'm usually not that far off, but I mean, I never thought Arkansas would beat Tennessee or Vandy would beat Alabama, or
No.
I think the other pick was the third SEC game. It was Missouri. That was the one. It was Missouri and A&M.
Yeah.
I didn't expect A&M to win by 30 points.
No.
That's crazy. Also, speaking of what's crazy, because the NCAA is not a fun league. Bryant was 4-6. Terry was 5-5. Well, Bober apparently is invested in the results of this, Terry, because you went 5-5 and Bryant went 4-6. He's keeping track of y'all.
He's keeping tabs for us. I appreciate that.
Oh,
Bober.
he's
Thank
letting
you.
us know. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
picked
he
against
Bober's got it.
UNC.
But did you guys see Vandy stormed the field? They got fined $250,000, and by the SEC, and Arkansas stormed the field for the second time, so they got fined $500,000, I think it was, or maybe it was $500,000 and $100,000, or $250,000 $100,000.
Yeah, it was $250,000.
SEC, go fuck yourselves. That is absolutely absurd. Vanderbilt deserves to storm the field and go down Broadway and all of that stuff in Nashville because they ain't never going to beat Alabama again. And as for Auburn, Arkansas, and Tennessee, Arkansas, they ain't got nothing better to do in Fayetteville. Leave them the hell alone. But they're fining them $250,000 because they stormed the field.
And Vanderbilt, because they're geniuses, got the field goal post back and are now cutting it up and auctioning it off, and all the money is going to pay the fine. Geniuses in Nashville as well.
Well, that's what Terry says. Vanderbilt exists in the SEC simply to keep the GPA up.
I believe that.
I was listening to somebody, I don't remember who it was. They were talking about it's a real shame that Nashville doesn't have a really good college football team because it would be a great college football town if they had somebody other than Vanderbilt. But then, sure enough, they beat Alabama.
A week like this, yeah.
Yeah, and it'll never happen again. That's my point. Just let them have their fun because it'll never happen again.
Agreed.
It's that once in a lifetime win, and the same with I about said Auburn again. Damn it, Arkansas and Tennessee.
Yeah,
just let it happen. Get over. Because look, Brian, I don't know about you, but God forbid. Well, actually, God help us. If somehow Nebraska beats Ohio State in the horseshoe, and the Husker fans storm the field, fine us whatever amount of money you want because we will pay the fine.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
Every booster we have will walk in with a check immediately going, how much we need to write this for?
Right.
Yeah, you're fine.
I want to see either Hutmaker or Robinson plant the black shirt flag in the middle of the freaking Ohio State Buckeye field the way Baker did it back when he played for Oklahoma. But this time make that shit stick. Just bam, plant it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, all right. It's been a good show, guys. And we went over, but it was worth it because we had Bryant here with us. A lot of good discussion on both shows. We thank everybody for voting as always and for tuning in. All the comments, Bober, and then we had Mike Whitaker and Devin was on here. So thanks everybody. A lot of Syracuse fans in the messages today.
One lost team, aren't they? I think so.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
McCord's a
Yeah.
good quarterback. He got fired from Ohio State for going 11-1.
Right.
Exactly.
So
But thanks, everybody. Been a great show. Thanks, Allison, if you're still awake at this
now we
point.
lulled
She
her
has
ass to sleep.
possibly fallen asleep. But anybody, obviously you, Andrew, anybody else that may be in the path of these storms, hunker down, stay safe, get out of there if you need to. Don't try to brave it out because it's not worth it.
This one's headed for the Florida Friends, Terry. We are out of it almost entirely, it looks like, unless it makes a radical shift. But you guys know I do Paving the Way with Medusa. She
Right.
will not be on the show tomorrow night because they are planning to evacuate if they haven't done already. 15-foot surges inland, Category 5 storm, 180 mile an hour sustained winds. It will go over 2/3 of Florida. It is going to be devastating to the state of Florida. So thoughts and prayers to them. And I mean that genuinely. And, the worst part is we're talking inside of 14 days, 2 major hurricanes. So it's going to be bad in the state of Florida. That's where all of our concentration is this week.
All right. Thoughts and prayers out to you. And like he said, we really mean that when we say that. Those aren't just the words we throw out and forget about it. Thank you, Bryant, for coming on. It's been fun. You'll have to come back. We'll
Yes.
see how these predictions go and see if Bober and I can catch up with you. Maybe you need to forget to pick some games again. That'll help us out.
Let's put it out here, Terry. If it's not you, the regular season winner, or me, I guess I could be on it. But if the regular season winner will get to come on and pick the college football playoffs with us.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent.
More motivation. Yes.
That's right. Well, thanks, everybody. It's a little late. I'm going to go get some sleep. But as I always say at the end of this show, be a champ in everything you do this week. See you later, everybody.